You are out of session.
All right, Bannock County Commissioners are back in session for our 2 o'clock meeting with the Planning Council update, and we're excited to have the Planning Council with us today. So if you don't mind, if we'll just start over here and go around and introduce ourselves for the record, and then we can get started. So,
Crystal Madsen.
Edward Ulrich.
Chad Selenite.
Molly Dimmick.
sure.
Tristan Borthwick.
Elise Foster.
Annie Hughes.
Okay, Jason, they might not know you.
I'm Jason Dixon. I'm the clerk, and I was just interested, so.
Commissioner Huff and
Commissioner Moser.
we're going to give Commissioner Bullock a little bit of a leave. He's out in Chubbuck meeting with Senator Senator Simpson. So he'll be here as soon as he can, but I know he wanted to talk to you guys are here, so, but because we have a meeting following this, we got to get moving today. So with that, we'll turn it over to you. You're the chair of the committee, aren't you?
No, he's out today.
No, oh,
He's
that's
out.
right.
Yeah, it'd be you.
Yeah, was I supposed to prepare something?
No, we just, tell us about what's going on and what your challenges have been, what your successes have been.
I think that probably our biggest challenge has been just getting a full board every week, which is just, I guess that's just kind of how it rolls when you have 5 people that are employed and have different directions are being pulled all the time. You know, like myself, I had some travel that I couldn't get out of that was planned well in advance. But other than that, from what I can tell and what I've heard from everybody is we still have been managing to handle our meetings, and we've had enough attendance to keep a quorum. And as long as Hal's still happy with us, I think we're doing all right.
We're happy. We meeting me and the collective on the other side.
That's exactly it. And we are happy with, I mean, hopefully I'm speaking for everybody here. The staff does a phenomenal job getting us ready for these. They give us plenty of time ahead of time to read through the packets and have everything prepared. Again, as you guys know probably better than anybody, the only thing that is difficult to anticipate is what our attendees offer to our meetings and how we navigate through some of that. As you know, that can be a challenge sometimes. I think our last big one was over at the Chubbuck Council, and I honestly believe that went very, very smoothly compared to what that particular meeting has done in the past. And I'm sure there'll be repeats of that meeting coming up after the last one. But other than that, the staff does a fantastic job. They answer questions, and we get great answers. And when we have questions, then we get good answers, and it works out good. And so far, I think you guys can add anything you want, but I'm extremely happy with how things go.
Great. In fact, let's just do that. Let's just go down the list. Molly, why don't you start us off and kind of tell us what your experience has been and what you see as some issues going forward, and we'll go from there.
I don't see any issues. I'll just echo Ed that really appreciate how well the staff prepares and the staff reports and how we can cite the relevant ordinances to make decision making as subjective as possible on our part.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks to the staff. Also, again, you guys do a great job and to get us prepared. I'll be honest, it's a tough job sometimes. I often wonder if we all make the right choice, but like Molly said, we try to work the ordinances and the laws in there to collectively find an answer, but sometimes I lay in bed and wonder if we made the right choice on some topics, but other than that, it's good, and the county's growing, and I guess that's about it. So.
Okay, good. Crystal?
I think same for all of those. I've been well prepared and educated by the team, and I appreciate that. Always more to learn, for sure. I guess sometimes it's I talked about numbers, and sometimes we don't know ahead of time who has to what is from which items, and that can be a challenge too. Like, oh, well, there was now where there was 4, maybe there's 3 or 2. So, but other than that, it's been a great experience.
Okay, okay. And I'm just curious, I'm going to take a quick liberty here. Tell me about your thoughts on the comp plan as you've looked at it, and obviously you've approved it and are sending it to us, so what are your thoughts on that? Whoever wants to go first.
I think it's a great job. We've looked at it a couple times. I think it spells out to the public. It's not like this great big mountain. If they want to read through the comprehensive plan, if they want more detail, they can dig deeper, but I think it's a good overview, and I think there's a lot of good wording in there that kind of keeps it not so tedious for someone to go read through anyways. So I think there's some good visions on there. It's finding that balance with it, like anything. So, yeah.
I think staff has done a good job on keeping it brief, but with meaningful language.
Okay. Any thoughts?
Well, I like the plan because of its flexibility. If it gets too rigid, then it kind of eliminates what we even do. And so that's part of one of the things that I probably noticed the most about this last go around was with just the openness and the ability that we have to have input in it and to be able to enforce what we can.
Okay. Gentlemen?
I got a question. What areas of concerns do you have with the county's ordinances? I mean, can you see a headache coming with any particular ordinances we have? Because the comprehensive plan helps dictate our ordinances, and you guys fall in line with that and make basically judgments, which you sometimes don't sleep well. Welcome to the club. But is there some alligators out there underneath the water? Is there some areas of concerns that we need to look at with some of our ordinances that would maybe prepare us for growth or with, proper county direction in the future? Because that's the purpose of what we're doing with comp plan and with what you guys do to try to interpret that. What handcuffs do you see out there? I know that's a great big ball of wax, but we're interested in that because it makes our jobs, okay, what can we do to help your jobs? And if you do great jobs, we don't end up with them here in
I think
an
some of
appeal.
these have been kind of addressed. The fact that we didn't have a wind or a solar ordinance, and we've had to muddle through some of that stuff. I think we're trying to get ahead of some of that, but I don't know if there's a crystal ball that we could get ahead of those things and truly be prepared when the waves hit us sometimes.
Yeah, with me, I don't see specific ordinances. The struggle has been with conditional use permits and how we can apply them. That's the ones that you don't sleep very good, and trying to determine, is that good for the area? And it's not, pertaining to a specific ordinance, but it's back to the conditional use permit and trying to apply that a yay or nay, or that's really the biggest ones I see, not a specific ordinance. And that may happen as it comes through, as we see ordinances, or maybe some issues with a specific one.
And I'll second that too. I mean, with as much construction there's going on in the south part of the valley, we've got one tomorrow. Not to go into the specifics of it, but the fact that almost all sand and gravel operations are here on the north end. And so there's I see that's gonna continue to be a push in the south end of the valley. And those are difficult. I mean, some are easier because they're up against subdivisions and there's thousands of people that are affected. But then there's other ones that are out in the middle of nowhere and they have a single neighbor. And those are the ones that I struggle with, because is it needed? Yes. Is it within the ordinance to have it? Yes, with a conditional use. But is there a justification for one neighbor to put it off and say, no, we're not going to do it? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, when I reread these things prior to our meetings, these are the things that sit in the back of my mind of how do we move forward? And then again, the fact that we don't all have to agree all the time. And therefore, I think that individuality becomes important in that discussion, and that we can move forward and try to come up with the best solution for our county. Sand and gravel's one example, but I foresee that with the growth that's happening south, I see that there's going to probably be more of those that are going to start coming up that are going to be a little bit more challenging. A lot of people out there don't want neighborhoods, but there's a lot of people out in Idaho or in our region that want a neighborhood, they want to have an affordable house, and they want to live south of Pocatello.
Right.
So that's going to be a challenge that we're going to continue to navigate, and it's easy for a subdivision in Chubbuck when there's 85 subdivisions around it. But when you're in Robin and someone wants to put in a subdivision and there isn't one, I think we're going to see some real challenges there.
Well, most of you are fairly new. Thank you for being willing to serve. And Ed just said it, I mean, you don't have to always agree. But when the decision's made, and that's what we go with. And so thank you very much for your willingness to do that. And there are a lot of challenges coming, but controlled growth and property rights are in the forefront of every one of our minds. And so nobody wants to take anything away from anybody, but we also want to have a great place to live, and we have that obligation. And just to ease your mind a little bit, if somebody doesn't like what you guys all say, we end up with the final decision, so it's off your shoulders then.
There you go.
Well, I just had a question for Molly. Given your experience dealing with regulations and stuff, how have you been able to apply that skill set to here?
I think being able to quickly review ordinances that are new to me. When I said subjective earlier, I meant objective, sorry. But using, evidence from the public hearings is very helpful, and people in their public testimony can cite the ordinance rather than having a more emotional testimony, and then that takes me right to, okay, yes, that is or isn't allowed. So I think just having that mindset of years and years of reading regulations helps me be able to kind of quickly jump in.
Cool. Jason, you got any questions since you
No.
were interested in this?
No, it's good to hear the ideas and perspectives of everyone. That's all, and I hadn't ever met anyone, so that's all.
Well, I got another question for you then. Since you brought up subdivisions, Idaho, like every other state, has a housing crisis, an affordable housing crisis. And as we go through the comp plan and get ready to redo some ordinances based on the comp plan and stuff like that, do you guys have any suggestions on things that we can do to help in any way with that affordable housing crisis?
I think we've already seen some of that. Jonathan Vincent's, the fourplexes that are zero lot lines. When they're on a limited amount of real estate, that was something new. We hadn't seen a whole lot of that before we started dealing with those. And I think that those are important for us to be able to look at those ideas and see how they play a role in and around the Bannock County, because we are traditionally a rural area. So we see a lot more people wanting to be on 2 to 5 acres than we want people that are out there saying they want to be on 250 square feet, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or whatnot. And so I think we have to be open, and again, that puts a lot of pressure back onto Hal and his group, but at the same time be open to what ideas there are, and us being willing to look at those and say, okay, is this the right area for this or is it not? I think for the first time in a long time we've seen some real small lots pop up in McCammon. Again, that's not Bannock County, but I've noticed them because they're on little tiny postage stamps, where we've never seen that in Ingham and McCammon, smaller than half acre, right?
Well, your front door's right at the railroad. All we gotta do is start an Amtrak or something.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because this afternoon, the meeting after this is talking about area of city impact. And so one of the things that we're talking about is how do we help create more affordable housing within those areas of city impact that we're now over. So that might require the county to look at creative lot lines and things like that. And so I'm just curious as to how that's all going to shape up going forward.
why don't you go over that new law a little bit with them?
Have you guys talked about, or heard about that much, the area of city impact? Allison, you're the guru on it, I'm gonna let you do it.
The state wrote a new statute adopted. We are required to have new areas of city impact negotiated with each of the cities by the end of the year. To put it in a nutshell, there's been a lot of pushback from cities over the years because of the old statute. They felt that they could tell us as a jurisdiction what we could and couldn't do within the area of city impact. State statute was rewritten with clarity that says anything beyond the city boundary is the county, end of discussion. Oh, by the way, your city impact can't be larger than what you project you can grow to within 5 years.
So what does that do in the aspect of like, as you guys probably know, City of McCammon has blown that impact area out just massive
It's
around.
going to get extremely small.
I was gonna say, and then Lava, on the other hand, they've got a very small impact, but they want to send letters to us to dictate what's gonna happen in that, so that's gonna reduce some of that pressure, correct?
That is correct.
So we visited with Franklin County, and their cities, the largest is 1/2 mile. Most of them are an eighth to a quarter of a mile of area of impact. Like the city of Ingham, I was in the city, on the city council when the city of Ingham did the area of impact, and the whole deal was make it as big as you can. So we went clean to the gap. I mean, we're at the Portnoy right here.
Yep.
That's where the city of Incom's area of impact is. City of Chubbuck goes clean out to Fort Hall. Well, there's no way. I mean, city of Income couldn't even annex in the Gilbert
Bordering
project.
subdivision, good
Yeah.
annex.
So I've talked with them and they know that they're gonna be shrunk.
Now, does
A lot.
this give the county more pressure for those cities to look at adjacent potential subdivisions to hook up to water and sewer and pressure on them, and it does?
Yeah, that's what we've been talking with Hal quite a bit about, again, is how do we manage those area of city impact zones so that as growth does occur, the stuff that we've put in place meshes with the cities so it makes that growth a lot easier, and that's the primary thing is city services, water and septic. How do we make sure that things are talking to each other when the time is right? Or how do we set the table for that?
And with that in mind, there's, in my mind, definition of city impact doesn't really address a lot of the other impact that people love to live just on the other side of the fence of the city, because they want close to schools and churches, and
The amenities.
to tell you the truth, they use the city streets to get anywhere they want to get from one end to the others. And so, in my mind, the impact area has to address some of that too, is whereas for instance, in McCammon, which I spent a lot of my life at, all these people going to Marsh Valley High School went right through our speed zone. That, and to me, is, how we look at those things, not just the adjacent subdivisions, but people want to live somewhat close to cities to take advantage of the parks and everything else. And so we've got to work really well with these cities to make sure that they're forward thinking, as well as we're not here to inhibit their growth, but encourage them to think farther down the road so that where is your infrastructure? Do you have the roads? Do you have the capabilities of providing sewers? Do you have to, but how big of a line do we require them to put in so that they're legal to hook up to a fire hydrant? Those kind of things. So those are the things that I think are with the new areas of impact. You folks on this board are going to have to address part of the comprehensive plan, marry it with the cities with a common goal is to manage the growth out around all those cities, because probably most cities, that's where people live, is just beyond, there's out in Robin, there's here, there, and everywhere, but all the other cities, they live just across the fence. So it will affect you in thinking about the city of impacts and how you are going to approve a subdivision or an individual dwelling. If we put an individual here, one here, one here, one here, there's no way in the world that a city could accommodate that kind of, individual line coming in here. So I think that's the concept that we're prepared to look forward to is, over the next 10, 20 years, what could this new statute, what could these new city impacts affect our decisions?
I would hope that that new statute will drive us to start seeing more mayors and city councilmen attending meetings where there's some, right now, there's only one mayor that we've seen probably 2 or 3 times at any of our meetings, a single mayor. And I couldn't tell you how many times I've been cornered at Costco or wherever. Hey, I'm on the Lava City Council and I heard you approve this. And it's hard to have that conversation. It's like, if you were really concerned about it, you should have been there. You should have had a chat. And so I'm hoping that maybe this will drive some more of that interaction between us and them. To me, if we're making decisions that are right across the city property line on the county, to me that should be very, very high interest for those municipalities to be involved with.
Yeah, well, and we're beginning those discussions today at 3 o'clock, and you guys are welcome to stay if you want. But we're gonna lay the groundwork for those negotiations with each of the cities to begin to work through that process. And again, you're welcome to stay if you want at 3. But
So with what Ed just said, do we send a notice to the cities of every meeting and what the agenda is?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know what the wording is in that, but is there a way we could change that to, we highly recommend? Because we get a letter, I'm just gonna say, Lava. We get a letter all the time that says, we do not support this, but then nobody comes. You know what I mean? I don't know, maybe we can reword that a little bit and say, we strongly advise you to have a representative from Lava or a mayor or city council join us in our meeting, see at least what's happening. And again, they have the same 3 minutes as everybody else to sit up there if they don't want to just send a letter and voice their opinion. And Mayor Max has done that numerous times. He'll come in and he'll sit down, he'll just say, I'm neutral on this, but I will say that this does affect the city of Vinton, for example.
Yeah.
anything else from anybody? Hal?
Well, I wanted to address a couple of items so that Commissioner Bullock understands some of the difficulty that we deal with based upon a question that he asked previously. To give you an idea of some of the difficulty is the fact that we have an ordinance that was written in 97 and 98. In 2008, a comprehensive plan update recommended that the multi-use zone be phased out. We still have the multi-use zone in place in 2025. Okay? 17 years the can has continued to be kicked down the road from an 08 recommendation on a comprehensive plan. We have so much conflict as we go through each time we update a comprehensive plan. We have an ordinance that's not in alignment with the current comprehensive plan. And that makes it difficult for them to deliberate and come up with findings when one of the requirements is, how does this proposal either provide and support the comprehensive plan, the goals and vision of the comprehensive plan, or is it in conflict? What happens to us is when we do a staff report, we can find 6 items in a staff report that support it, and we can also find 6 items that are in conflict. To me, that is a moot point. The fact that it does or it doesn't support the goals and the visions of the comprehensive plan. I want to know whether or not it meets the intent of the law, which is the ordinance. They end up deliberating and they're caught between conflicting information. You know, I can give you as much information that says yes, and I can give you just as much as says no. So where do we come up with a finding that supports one way or the other? What is each of these people, what is their position on that particular item that they're trying to deliberate? That's why it's critical as we move forward with comprehensive plan, areas of city impact renegotiation, ordinances that now coincide with a new ACI. And get through those particular issues so that we have better clarity between what the commission ultimately will hear if it's contested versus what they're trying to deliberate and come up with good, sound decisions. Therein lies part of the difficulty of what it is that we do, working with them. They are not in a very comfortable position because of the conflict that we have internally with our documents. And it's been kicked down the road for so long that this year, 2025, is absolutely critical that ACI's comprehensive plan and ordinance have come into some level of alignment as opposed to a part here, a part there, a part there. It's also very, very conflicting to the general public because they at times they don't know where to start, shall we say, when they come in to testify against something. Just sharing with you, when you asked that question previously, therein lies, in my opinion, the underlying root of the problem of what it is that they try to do. And it's not just specific to this council, it's specifically to, quote-unquote, any council and the makeup and those constituents that are serving. It's not an easy place to be. So cross our fingers that we get it in alignment and it makes it easier for all of us.
Yes, and in response to that, I can totally understand that, because in a city, on the other side of the fence, and also in the county, when you try to rezone a city, you're just like cutting off a stepchild, because you have business here, you have dairies here, and so in defense, I think that's where the multi-use came from. They didn't know what else to do with a particular piece of property that is right next to a nice R1, but then right across the street is a grocery store or a service station. And I think some of the area in the county would almost be the same thing. You have a little street that's got nice homes, well, right across the street from it is a construction company or a dairy or whatever. And so I think in defense, that's probably why they went to the multi-use. It was an easy way out.
Years ago,
And I
that is
agree
correct.
with you that was one of the hardest things we ever had to do as a city, is grind through and rezone certain blocks.
Yep.
By moving it, and everything else. And the same way with agricultural ground inside the city limits, because of tax consequences, if it was zoned agriculture. But if that could be subdivided and we went to R1 with it, holy cow. So I understand that multi-use is, I agree that we probably need to do everything we can to give you a little better leverage with that. But just as a historical, that's why that multi-use, I think, it's a miscellaneous in accounting. Anything you don't know what to do with, stick it in miscellaneous. Well, as an accountant, I can tell you, there is no such, name me a miscellaneous. Can you describe it? No, put it somewhere. And I think that's what we've got to do with, there's no such thing as miscellaneous, and I don't know how you deal with multi-use unless you make those hard choices and
Make
put
it go,
something in there.
and make it go away.
Yeah, because otherwise multi-use will come back to haunt you at night. That's one of those that just will do. So I appreciate your thoughts in doing that, and I agree with you, so that we can dovetail all of those different entities that we're talking about, and what can we do to make it a more perfect system for you guys, for us, for the builders. I think it should be transparent for them also, so that we don't have those gray lines, because we don't want those conflicts, and neither do you. Thank you.
Before I let all of that go, I need to clarify a couple of things and say thank you to my team and what they do to also jump on the accolades that have come from members of the council. We've been, I shouldn't say we, I've taken it more personally, I've been accused of having a rubber stamp and blanket check to approve everything. What happens specifically is that they go through, create staff reports, they flesh out all of the potential problems, and if we know that there is a problem or it's not overly clear, we call an applicant and say we need to possibly push off a month so that we have better information because this application is weak. Don't want to see you waste your money. they receive the information that, for all intents and purposes, is supportive of an applicant's position relative to complying with the legal requirements of the ordinance, okay? They come prepared to deliberate and argue, having read those staff reports showing that this is a pretty strong application. They have a good position. But then they end up with public comment that is in nowhere, shape, or form ready to deliberate and argue against the application and stating that it doesn't comply with the ordinance and it should be not denied on these facts. We hear, not in my backyard, not in my backyard, not in my backyard, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want
My
it.
septic system, my well, you know.
They do a phenomenal job of keeping clarity on what it is that they need to deliberate over, and they do a very good job, and I know it's a poor choice of words, of entertaining those people that come to the microphone. And it's not easy. It is not an easy thing to do. And I just wanted to say thank you to them for coming prepared to deliberate against the rule of law and not entertain emotion. And because of that, that's why the council works as good as it does. They're new, they're still refining that process, but so far, they've done a great job.
And I'd like to just add to that I've never seen a staff that gives us as clean a report up front to where we can have confidence that we're not going to sit there till midnight to hear this one hearing because it's all emotion. They give us a fantastic document that says, this is what's been fleshed out, this is our recommendation. And I've never been able to read it and look at a recommendation from the county and shake my head and say, what the heck is this? You know what I mean? They make logical, very clear, very thought out recommendations to us that really helps us to deliberate and do our job.
I'd just like to hear from Crystal on that, because you're kind of new to this whole game. And so what has been your experience with what we're talking about here?
I echo that, for sure, learning process, but I do appreciate that we can look at the facts, they're right there, they're clear. At times, I still struggle with the iPad, but it just zips and zings everywhere. Yeah, I can't disagree.
And they're very knowledgeable. I don't think I've been able to stump them with a question yet.
Nice.
Well, our public hasn't either. We've always been able to, between them and us, when we've had some of this real emotional talk come from the public hasn't been able to stump us either. So, I mean, that is a tribute to them.
This is how our council is basically seated. And I'm on the end next to Crystal, and there's many times when we've had our little side conversations, so that she's understanding with greater clarity. If she sees something and all of a sudden in the middle of the meeting, she's like, we'll hurry and get some clarity in there so that she has that answered. But for the most part, very kudos again to all of them. They do a great job.
Okay, staff, anything from you guys?
No, I just want to thank them for being prepared. It's nice that they can deliberate so quickly.
Very good.
So what's been your longest meeting? How late you been there?
We had
one that went to 10:30?
We did. Yeah, because I didn't get up until almost 11:15.
Yeah.
I don't remember which one that was. Was it? The
Two
Chubb-
nights in a row, we were.
It was 2 nights in a row. We were like.
Oh, yeah, the Wednesday and then the Thursday.
The night before, we thought it was going to be a slam dunk, and it wasn't a slam dunk.
It was when because we skipped December, right, trying to get everybody
That's right.
together.
We're trying to get it.
And then we came in and we had a whole bunch of agenda
In
items.
January, yeah.
I will say this too, when it came back around for me to sign back up, I had 2 pieces of anxiety, and those 2 pieces had nothing to do with the staff. It had 100% to do with, do I have time to do this? Because the staff can tell you, our last round before, we had almost every meeting was, and we had people come in and great public people were able to rally lots of people for their cause. But as you know how that goes, that means 3 minutes per person, and people will get up and talk about things that have absolutely nothing to do with anything. And there's some anxiety that happens there and time. But the second one was who in the group is not going to be here and what kind of new people we're going to get. And as you know, there's always this thought of, what if I have somebody I completely disagree with every single time? And it is not, we've had great people. I mean, even the ones that come in and they were there for a short time, we've still had really good people, and we've been able to move through the end walks of life. They're in every direction. Political views, every direction. Type of work we do, every direction. But we're able to at least rally behind the staff and house group and look at the documents in black and white and really put our personal things aside and be able to look at it and try to help out and move it forward. And that's what the purpose of this is.
Very good. Well, anything else?
Yes, thank you. I mean, unfortunately, most of these small cities don't have, I think Ingham does, but most small cities don't have their own planning and zoning, personnel, so it falls under the mayors and the council, and many of them are not as versed as they should. We rely on, everybody else, but for you guys to work with, and it's going to require that kind of work to move us forward in the next few years, and to work with the cities, work with that. I appreciate all your efforts and willingness. You guys ought to be paid $100,000 a year, but guess what? It won't happen.
Jason won't let us.
Yeah, blame Jason.
I'm willing to double your salary.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not talking to staff.
Two bags of mints next time.
That's one of those that we could give you a 50-cent piece and a pat on the back, and you could buy a can of pop, but.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, unless you really whatever, but thank you. It's a tough thing to do, but very important for Bannock County to move forward.
Just echo that. Thank you very, very much. We realize the pressure that you're under, and it is a big deal. And that's why when we interview and stuff, it's not an easy decision for us, but we do like the diversity and not everybody saying, well, this is just easy, just do it this way. But working together and looking for the good in the county. So thank you very, very much. And our staff and Hal, thank you. I'll just tell you that when Jason and I come into these offices weekly, daily, we was receiving calls. And it's very seldom I receive a call anymore. And it's because of you all and the efforts that you put in. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can't add anything more than that than to say I would stack our planning and development group and our council against anybody else in the state. We attend commissioners' meetings and hear different things, and I'd stack ours up against anybody, and that's because of the effort you guys do and the effort that staff does. We have a great team, and just appreciate y'all very much. So unless you guys have anything else, we've taken up enough of your time, but thank you for taking the time to come. Thank you again for all your meetings and your preparation, because that is a big deal when you can go to the meetings and people are prepared. Makes life so much easier. Makes it easier. So thank you, and with that,